Alright, it's ready for sanding. Now what I usually use, I've got a few different ways of sanding these things. I've got the vertical disc, the belt sander, and the one I'm going to use today is just a sanding drum chucked up into my drill press. I'm going to turn it on and just run it across there and sand those edges nice and smooth. Then I'll take it back into the house and do all the beveling, edge beveling and dyeing and stuff, and make it all nice and pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this camera off and get to sanding on this thing. After working at it for a little while, I got the edge sanded to my satisfaction. Now it's time to go ahead and bevel those edges. Well, first I'm going to put the stitch line in, and then I'll go ahead and bevel those edges and re-dye it and get all my burnishing done. Getting closer all the time. We're back from the garage. I got my edge nicely sanded as you saw me doing in there. Now sometimes when I come back in, I'll look at it and think, oh, I could use a little bit more right there, a little bit more right there. But actually, this is pretty good. Now the next step, actually, is going to be to bevel the edges. Now last time I used my beveler, I noticed it was a little bit dull and having a little bit of trouble cutting through the leather. So I got my strop, put my rouge on the edge, and I'm just going to go ahead and strop my beveler real quick to get it nice and sharp. Now I've been looking at it, and the stitch line I have on it that I made when I first cut this leather, it's still centered pretty good, so I don't have to redo that. But back to the beveler, you just take it and cut the edge of the leather off. Try to keep it nice and smooth, because the prettier I make it now, the better it'll be once it's all finished. Line still looks nicely centered. Come back the other way there. There we go. That looks good. And get the other side as well. Now the next step is going to be to go ahead and re-dye this edge. And I'll probably stitch it before I do my burnishing, but I can go ahead and dye it now. I'll just get my little ball of dye out, get my black dauber out, and get some dye on that edge. Let me get set up for that. Now it's just time to get some dye back on those edges. Now they're all nice and smooth and purty and beveled, I can go ahead and get some dye on them. Make sure I use lots of dye so I get a nice edge. Because like I said in other videos, this edge is the one that gets noticed the most. Especially if it's a big wide edge like this one. And it really pays to take the time to make it really pretty. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for a while. Then we're going to go ahead and punch some stitch holes and get this thing stitched up in preparation for the edge burnishing. Alright. Yeah, it's getting kind of dark out, but there you go. Gotta let that dry for a while. Now there's some people that burnish their edges right after they dye them when the dye is still wet. I see one fella, he uses canvas to do that, and he gets some pretty good results. There's different techniques and ways of doing stuff. And as long as you get the result you like, that's groovy. Well, I'm going to let that dry. We'll get back to it. And we'll see you next time around.